the story of Noah and the flood, it's very important. It's not just a fairy tale. It's one of the biggest stories, disaster, whatever you can call in the world's history, because you have judgment. 8 people who survived, and Noah found grace in the eyes of God, it says in Genesis 6. And then he listens to God, obeys God, and builds by faith an ark to save his family. You have this biblical story about salvation and judgment, and hopefully these people who come and go look up some more information about it on their own. So I call this a very impactful, I want to use the word ministry, because that's not what we are, but effort, what we're doing out there. The scientific effort is very impactful, and that's why, for me, this is so important to do this work.
Welcome to the War Room. I'm Kyle, and thank you for joining me yet again on the Word at War. So just like the Holy Grail, or the Ark of the Covenant, the search for Noah's Ark has been long sought after by explorers, historians, and biblical researchers alike. We read in Genesis how Noah's Ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat, in what is now modern-day Turkey. My guest today believes that science will soon prove that we have finally found the archaeological remains of the Ark itself. I'm so pleased to welcome back to the show today my friend and biblical researcher, Andrew Jones. Andrew, thanks for coming back, man.
Thanks, Kyle, for having me. I'm happy to share as always.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to dig into the Ark.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah, this is an amazing journey, and we're going to get into the history of the site. We're going to get into a lot of things. But if you want to find out more about Andrew and the things that are going on here, by all means, please go to www.noahsarkscans.com. And I will put that down in the description so you guys can click it there. And then I'll have a link on the screen as well. But noahsarkscans.com. And then you can actually find out video as well for all of this over on Andrew's YouTube channel. There's tons of stuff over there from not only this site, but other sites and all kinds of great stuff at Discovered Media. So youtube.com at Discovered Media, and you can find out all about that. So looking forward to this conversation today, and so glad to have you back, my friend. So, my first question, just for those that maybe aren't super familiar with you, to just talk a little bit about your background and your history, just give a quick bring them up to speed on that, and ultimately what led you to this particular site and what you're doing here.
Well, I mainly grew up in Northern California, but before that, I was a kid and living in a cabin with my parents in Montana and even Ohio. We kind of moved around a lot. I grew up in a Christian home, so at an early age, I believed in these stories from Genesis and believed that Noah's Ark existed. My dad had in his library a number of archaeological books. One was the Ark File by Rennie Norbergen, and it even had photos of this site. So I don't remember my thoughts back then at that early age about the site, but I still have a copy of the book, and that you can buy on used bookstores. And it mentions the Darupanar Noah's Ark site. When I was in middle school, a guy named Ron Wyatt came out to Northern California. He had a one-night meeting. It was a Thursday night. And I remember that I was a geek, maybe I still am, and so I had to do homework. So I did not want to go to the meeting, but I wanted to know what this guy was claiming. It was all different topics, not just one topic. It was Mount Sinai, the Red Sea crossing, Noah's Ark. And so I asked my dad if he could go to the church and listen to the meeting. And so he decided to do it. And he came back and told me, this guy said he found Noah's Ark at Mount Sinai in Arabia. So I got excited. Well, I want to dig into this because, I was just inquisitive. And this was 1990, I think, or 91. And so I was early teen. And
You're dating
so I went
yourself,
and looked
by the
at Yeah, I'm going to hit 50 soon.
Yeah, all right. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So I remember going to a bookstore and finding Ron's book, Discovered Noah's Ark. It was a very small paperback, but it had his like a painting of him in the Ark on the front, and he had an Indiana Jones hat. So I read it, but it was very brief, and it had all these different chapters on different claims he was making, but it had pictures too, black and white photos. But I said, I have to contact this guy. So this is early 90s before there's the internet. And so the only way to contact somebody said mailing them a letter or faxing, but is to call them. And so I called 411, or I dialed 411 and got the operator. And I said, for those who don't know what that is, you know how to do that. Back then, that was a way to get like a phone book. If they were
Hmm.
publicly listed, you could get their phone number from the operator and they'll patch you through. So I did that. And they said, oh, yeah, we found a Ron Wyatt in Madison, Tennessee. Would you like me to connect you to him? I was like, oh, okay, sure. And so I didn't ask my parents to do this. I'm making a long distance phone call. This is before, unlimited minutes and all that.
Oh, that's funny.
And I reached out and he answered the phone. I remember I was kind of stunned. I was like, okay, I was kind of stumbling around. This was a kid back then. And I remember he said, well, I just walked in the door from one of my trips to Israel. He said, if you call me back tomorrow, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Like, oh, okay. So I called him back the next day and even the day after that. And I started to bug him probably, but I called him a lot through those middle and high school years. And
Yeah.
I remember that first month though, my parents got the phone bill at the end of the month. They're
Oh
like,
my
"Who's this number
gosh.
you're calling?" I think it was like a 615 number or something area
Yeah.
code from Nashville area. And so, but I had to limit my time. But I remember I was so into it that I would write down my questions and then write down what he was saying. Then I bought a tape recorder without telling them, so it's probably illegal.
Oh my gosh.
I would record our conversations and then on cassette tape, and then I'd transcribe it, and then I'd reuse the tape because I didn't have enough money to buy a bunch of the tapes. I wish I saved all these early conversations with Ron and asked
Yeah.
him more questions. And we didn't know he'd pass away that soon, but so anyways, it was great talking to him and his family about these claims, especially Noah's Ark and Mount Sinai. Those are the two topics I was really interested in. And I remember another friend of mine who was older and he had the funds. We decided to team up with some other churches in Northern California and bring out Ron Wyatt to do like 3 weekends of or 2 weekends of meetings. And so he could give his lecture in Sacramento area, and then in Chico was another place, and then Redding. So I think it was actually one weekend. So Friday night one church got him, then Saturday night, and then Sunday the other. So that was my first time actually meeting Ron, and I remember um, him. We had invited him to our house before the meeting started for like a potluck with a bunch of friends. I remember, as with any potluck, the conversation would go all over the place. But I remember he was only interested in talking about archaeology in the Bible and how to win souls for Christ. And
Yeah.
if you thought someone would bring up like basketball, Sacramento Kings, or politics, and he would not participate in the conversation. His interest was the Bible. And a very nice guy, very
Yeah.
humble. And that was my impression of him for that weekend. And I even went up to see him at the other places he was talking. And then I remember we brought him out the next year. So this was 1995. That year I graduated high school. And then 96, we brought him out. And then my second year of college, I decided that I was going to go see Noah's Ark. Well, what happened? A friend of mine, another older gentleman from Florida, he contacted me and said, "Hey, I need a travel companion. I want to go see this site." And he was on Ron Wyatt's early 1990s tour, but because of the
Mm.
political situation out here back then, a busload of Americans was a target. So the
Mm.
gendarme or the police, these checkpoints they have out here, they stopped the bus from driving out towards this area, and they said, "You guys have to turn around. It's not safe." My friend never saw it, the ark, and he was kind of upset because Ron actually went in a car. He rented a taxi and brought like two or three other people. They privately went out to the Ark site, and my friend wasn't part of it. So he said, "Hey, Andrew, we're going to go to Noah's Ark if you want to go with me." And just him and I, and we're going to not tell Ron White. He
Yeah.
said, "What?" He said, "No, he's going to try to talk us out of it." He said, "It's
Yeah.
not safe out there." I was like, "Oh, okay." So finally, before the trip, I called Ron and said, "Hey, Bill and I are going to Noah's Ark." So he said, I remember he got really upset. He said, "You tell Ron you should tell Bill Fry to call me right now." I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
no." So I told Bill, Ron wants you to call him about our trip. But it
Oh
worked
my
out because
goodness.
Ron gave us all these posters to put up in the visitor center, which
Okay.
was great. He gave us some money to give to the guy who ran the place for his new teeth. A local villager was running the place, an older guy who needed dentures or something. And I remember we also got a lot of tips from Ron that basically
Yeah.
scared us to death. So we were very I have so many stories on that first trip. We were just so paranoid. But when I first saw the site, I knew I had to come back. Like even the first day I saw it, I was like, oh, I need to spend more time here. And I was in the middle of college, and it was just amazing seeing that boat formation on the side of the mountain. And kind of behind me on my television. You can see part of it
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. They're
Then the valley there, and then even this photo over here. My
yeah, I see this.
there it is, left side top
Yeah.
lit up well. But so that's how I got involved in the site, and that was '97. My first trip out here. I came out 3 years later. I mean, that's when I met Dr. Sally Brack Tuton. That summer, we came out twice that year to visit the Ark site. But I lost contact with him until like 3 years ago, I think it was 2022. Reconnected, and he's still alive, and he's like the oldest and most seasoned researcher. And of course, he's a professor of geology, so he knows every like you see almost like every rock in that area. So Sally, as I call him, he's like a grandfather to me, and really nice guy, 84 years old, and but geologist, so full of so much knowledge about the area. I was just chatting with him earlier today about because he's looking for these companies to help us do the next phase of the research, and so yeah, so that was 2000. I didn't come back to Turkey until 2013. I was doing excavations as a volunteer in Israel and Jerusalem area. And then finally, 2013, a friend said, "Hey, we're going to be on a tour out there. You want to come out?" And so I went back. I came back out here, and I started coming out almost every summer. I reconnected with people I knew out here, and I told them, "Hey, we'd love to do more research." Ron Wyatt passed away in 1999, and nothing was being done with the site. There was an empty building overlooking it, kind of run down. And then a friend of mine, an acquaintance, actually, John Larson from New Zealand, he did the first ERT scans, you can say, for the most recent ERT done in 2014. And so him and I were out twice that year in 2014. And so I was there with a media team, my camera guy, photographer, videoing the efforts. And then after he got really positive results showing, the possible hull below the ground, this hull shape, and then showing different layers that would match the Bible, talking about three decks to the hull, to the boat. I then talked to some of the locals, said, "Hey, let's take it the next step. Let's see if we can excavate." And so that was 2015, and then 16. We thought we could. Sadly, that year, if those who keep track of Middle Eastern news, there's always some problem out here. But in
Yeah.
July of that year, there was an attempted coup in Turkey, and so
Mm.
the country went into national emergency. People were fired and jailed and arrested. Just chaos. And
Pretty
so
much
we
like a
couldn't.
lockdown, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And we could not do anything. So by 2018, 2 years later, though, they had gotten back to normal, basically. And so my friend out here at the time said, "Come on out, let's try it again." And so that's when in 2018 and 19, I was spending a lot of time out here, even overstayed my visa in 2019. And that was the year we did. So a lot of things happened that year. My parents passed away that year, but then
Mm. Sorry.
that fall, yeah, then that fall, Saudi Arabia opened for tourism, September
Mm.
2019, and we were not sneaking, but we were on a business visa. And my last time I think we talked about this, but from 2016 until then, I had a 5-year visa, so I was going back and forth a lot to Saudi Arabia, investigating Mount Sinai there and the Exodus route. But by October, so 1 month later, we got permits to do radar scans on Noah's Ark. So this would be the first scan since the 80s. And we did a complete, it wasn't just like, some people have done it quickly, illegally done scans on it, but not the whole site. Now, I've seen their results. You can, they have like a little trail where they kept the radar on as they kind of rush off the site. No, we did it for 3 or 4 days. Our team that we hired was able to scan the whole site. And this becomes very important because later on I'll tell you like some of the new results we're getting from that data. And that's what hit the news this year, this result. So that was October 2019. And within 3 weeks, we were able to, I already had bought my ticket to leave and I was already overstayed my visa. So they actually not kicked me out, but when I left the country, I had to pay a fine. And, and then they said, "You can't come back for 3 months." But okay, no problem. I was going to be gone anyways. But
Yeah.
by
Right.
January, by February, I was going to come back. I came back, and as you know, this was 2020, and so February, March,
COVID.
everything hits the
Yeah.
fan, and so I was here when Saudi Arabia shut down their borders, and then of course Turkey did the same, but they were still kind of open if you had the shots. But I remember I had to cancel like 3 or 4 days for my tour, maybe even a couple days for my tour to Mount Sinai. I was going to fly back to Saudi Arabia. Uh, Saudi, cancel or close the borders. And so I had to call everyone, email them, say, don't come, change your tickets. I'm sorry. We can't get into the country. And this was late February of 2020. And so I was here in Turkey, and the guy I was staying with at the time said, Andrew, I built this he had built a little small room on his property that had like everything in it, like a kitchenette, the bedroom, it was a one bedroom room basically, but had everything and a
Yeah.
bathroom on the side. So he said, "You why don't you stay here? We don't." At that time, everyone was kind of scared. We didn't know what would happen, and so with the country being on lockdown, even in Turkey, he said, "What would you do? Go back to the U.S.?" So I thought it over and I decided to stay. Most of my stuff was in storage that actually back in the U.S., so I didn't even have a house when I go back and be sleeping on my brother's couch. And I
You're
was just
homeless the
traveling
minute
the
you get
world.
home.
Yeah. So, and what else would I do in the US? I thought, well, I'd go back to California, it'd be more expensive to live. My funds
Yeah,
would dry
right.
up
Yeah.
faster. So I might just stay in Turkey, which was at that time, even with inflation today, it's still a good place to live, and your dollars go further here. So,
Nice.
anyways, I decided to stay, and then we started. I'm 30 minutes from the ARC site, and so we started talking to the locals and getting to know some of the people involved in the government positions and the universities. And some are still good friends today, and they've helped us in many ways. Others have scammed us.
Yeah,
So
right.
we've, yeah, it's been quite a learning curve to be out here trying to do research and living here, and being able to know who to trust and not to trust.
Right.
But so from 2020 until now, I've been living here. Now, after COVID, I started traveling again. I do, like, in 2 months I'll be gone. So every winter I leave the country for 3 or 4 months because I have my tours and research I do and videoing for my YouTube channel. And I usually go to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. And so I hit up those countries, and other times I go to Europe. But most of the time I'm in the Middle East doing something during the winter. So when it's cooler temperatures, it's great to be out in the desert. But over here on the ARC site, it's covered in snow. So in the wintertime, I'm not doing anything. So yeah, so that's my life now. I
That's
didn't
crazy.
expect it to be this way. So I do tours on the side. It depends on the economy, and if people are scared of wars, it depends on that affects your tours
Yeah,
a lot.
right.
But the great thing is that being here near this biblical archaeological sites, these sites in Turkey or the Middle East in general, you can it's like in your backyard. You can walk out and go somewhere and see something related to the Bible. And for me,
That's crazy.
I didn't expect I'd be doing that. So yeah, that's kind of a long
No, 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 no. That's
long
great, dude.
answer to your question.
Yeah,
But
and there's two things I want to share there. First of all, if you are interested in taking one of those tours, I believe the website is actually discoveredsinai.com, correct?
yeah, for the
Yeah.
Exodus and Mount Sinai
Yes.
tours. Yeah.
Yep.
And
So
in
I
fact,
just we
we're
didn't.
this year we're doing a combo. So we started
Ooh.
doing this combo where, because some people, they don't want to go 2 trips, and they said, "Hey, if I'm in the Middle East, let's see all." So we do once a year. We do see all the sites where we start in Turkey, end up in Israel. And when I say all the sites, I mean like the ones mainly associated with Ron Wyatt, but even the regular biblical archaeological sites, like Mount Nebo and Jericho and Jerusalem. But so we do it, and that's a 1 month. So if you're mainly retirees or you're a billionaire or something,
Yeah,
you could do that
right.
trip. But for those who just want to, we started doing this where it's just Sinai, like the two main discoveries that we can visit. So Noah's Ark and Mount Sinai. So we have one planned for, and it's not on our website. We're mainly a private thing, but because I've been so busy, I need to put it up. But it's end of November into December. So those who want to see Noah's Ark at the end of November and then go
Mm.
to the Exodus route in Sinai, that will be planned. And then we haven't scheduled our 2026 dates yet. Very soon we will, and we'll have that again. So yeah, so there'll be information on discoveredsinai.com, but also for Noah's Ark, noahsarkscans.com. It has a tab with our tours listed.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that because I
Yeah,
think it's an
thank you.
amazing thing. The other thing too is I couldn't help but think when you were finishing up that statement about seeing all these things and seeing how the Bible is right in front of your face. It had to have just like sealed your soul for, the reality of scripture. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like a lot of people don't
yeah,
see it firsthand, right? So I would think that there
yeah.
is, when you can put the tangible with the theoretical that we read in the Bible. I mean, it's not theoretical, it's real,
Yeah.
but it's just now it's tangible and you
With
can
the
actually
words on
touch
the
it and you can
page,
see it and it comes alive. I would think that's pretty
when
powerful.
you look at what Christ said to the Apostle Thomas, doubting Thomas, he was talking about because Thomas didn't believe he had been resurrected. He wanted to see the physical proof. He wanted to, touch those wounds and see Jesus. And so when he allowed Thomas that opportunity, he answered his prayers. And so there are people like that. Now, I'm not a doubting Thomas, but it's always great to see physical. I'm very
Yeah,
logical,
right.
so something has to make sense. And so not everything that's claimed about these sites are true. People are making theories, and Ron had theories and claims, and there's things we're just checking out. But there's things, new data that's coming out. They're like, wow. So, like for Noah's Ark, we're looking at, okay, maybe the dimensions given in the Bible, maybe those are actually the.
Listen to the full members-only episode. Sign up for your 7-day free trial. thewordAtwar.supercast.com.